This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's get started now. Okay, folks, let's get started. We are in time still. Participants are yet to join. There are still people are joining the session. We'll get started now, so let them join on the way. Okay, so before we getting started with the session, okay, let's have a quick validation. Please use your chat window. Please confirm in case if my screen is visible and in case if my audio is clear enough, please confirm me by saying yes in the chat window. Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I can see a lot of messages coming in the chat window. Thanks for acknowledging. That's, I hope, like everyone is getting a quality screen fed and audio fed. Okay, saying that, let's get started. Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, so before we getting started with the session, okay, so there are three important points to be noted why you need to stay till end of this particular session. Okay, so the point number one. Okay, let me just pick a marker here. So the point number one. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the point number one, so why you need to stay till end of this particular session. Okay, so this session is going to be for next 2 hours. Okay, this is going to be for next 2 hours, so make sure you make your time accordingly. So make sure your calendar accordingly. So you're going to stay till end of the session. The second point, today you're going to learn something really new in this particular program, so about MLOps and how it's going to impact your career, right, when you have MLOps skill set on your resumes. Okay, and the third important stuff, okay, the third important step for the people who are going to stay till end of this session, so they can able to download the free MLOps ebooks suggested from, let's say, the cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP, and you can also win awesome discounts and other opportunities only if you stay till end of the session. As I mentioned, 2 hours. Okay, let's get started now without wasting much of our time. Okay, so saying that, so I would like to welcome everyone to this session on machine learning operations specialization course demo. So this is going to be a demo session on a course which is called MLOps Specialization. So we will be talking about more about this particular program in upcoming slides. Okay, saying that, okay, so let's get started. So before we getting started with the session, I would like to understand my audience. Definitely, yes. I mean, so you might be joining from various different countries, right? So you might be a working professional, you might be a student. So tell me who you are. Are you a student? Are you a working professional? In case if you're a working professional, mention, are you a data scientist? Just mention it as a data scientist. Are you a data engineer? Are you a data analyst, or maybe a machine learning engineer? Please do mention in your chat window so I can able to set a threshold accordingly, so I can able to deliver this content in a better quality till end of this particular session. Okay, so go ahead and mention who you are. So mention if you're a student, mention you're a student. If you're a, let's say, a data scientist, mention you're a data scientist, or maybe data analyst. Whoever you are, please do mention it in the chat window so I can able to know who you are. Okay, that's awesome. I can see a lot of messages pouring in a chat window right now. I can see a lot of data scientists. So Sri says he's a data scientist. Okay, so I can see there are students here. That's awesome. So we have Abhi, which says AI engineer. Asif says data analyst in Malaysia. That's awesome. So yeah, so then we have Rolex, a student, data science student. That's awesome. That's great. That's awesome. So we have Sai, who is a DevOps engineer. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. So, and we have Prakash, who is a project lead. Okay. So that's great. Okay. So let's get started with this particular session. Okay. So what is this session about and what we're going to learn? So first of all, a quick introduction about myself. Maybe let me just quickly turn on my camera. So probably you should able to see me right now. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So let me proceed. So this is Sharath. So you're a trainer for this particular 2-hour session on MLOps specialization program. So we are from Citron Technologies. I mean, so anything that you want to mention in terms of, let's say, AWS, it may be Azure or GCP in terms of ML, data science, and the MLOps, we are the best peoples. Personally, I've done more than 70 plus workshops and courses, trained more than 5,000 plus working professionals like you who can able to leveraging their skills and upgrading their salaries, or maybe leveraging their let's say the career to the next level. As simple as that. Okay, saying more about us later. Let's get started with the session. Okay, so now I'm going to turn off my camera, otherwise you'll be having my screen feed towards my left side, otherwise you might not get a quality content. Saying that, let's get started now. So now I'm going to quickly disable my camera. Let's get started now. Okay, awesome. So let's get started. So here are the highlights of this particular program. Okay, so now let me just quickly shift my, yep. Okay, here we go. These are the highlights. Okay, so these are the highlights of this particular session. So what are the three important things that we're going to focus in this particular session would be what is really MLOps is all about, and what is really MLOps and why you need to learn MLOps. Then comes what it takes to master MLOps, and what does the job opportunities looks like. Let's say how does let's say your career looks like when you have an MLOps skill set on part of your resume. Okay, saying that, let's get started. See, whatever the session that we conduct, so we would like to continue with this beautiful picture, as simple as that. Okay, so here's a task for you guys. Okay, I want you guys to observe this particular picture for the next 10 seconds. That's it, as simple as that. I want you guys to observe this particular picture for the next 10 seconds. Then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions for you to get started. Okay, so go ahead, observe this particular picture for the next 10 seconds. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Go ahead. Yes. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now I guess there is nothing much to observe, right, in this particular picture. So okay, now here are the questions. Okay, I want to ask you guys. Okay, so what do you think this picture is about? What do you think this picture is about? What does this picture represents? Go ahead and mention that in the chat window. Try to describe this particular picture actually. Okay, go and describe this particular picture in your chat window. See, describe what it is, what kind of an objects that you can able to see in this particular picture. Okay, so I can see the messages coming out from the chat window. I can see, yeah, so Mark says dog walking park, and so we have Sunil, it says he says park, and and person called AK says dogs. Okay, so that's good. Okay, that's awesome. You guys can able to describe what is this picture is about, obviously, right? Yeah, that's great. So obviously everyone understands this is a picture of a park. There's no rocket science, that there is no need of you to learn a rocket science just to describe this particular picture, obviously, right? So we understand, everyone understands this is a picture of a park, and I can see a men, and I can see a women, and I can able to see a dogs here, right? I can able to see a different breeds of dogs, not just a one single dog. I can able to see a different breeds of dogs here. I can see a dog which is carrying a ball in his mouth. I can see a path where I can walk, right? But that's not the question that I would like to ask. My question is this actually. My question is this. How do you know this is a picture of a park? You guys described this is a picture of a park. And how do you know this is a picture of a man? And how do you know this is a picture of a dog? How did you know that? Who taught you this is a picture of a dog? Right? So, and I can see AK says object, man, woman, different kinds of dogs. I mean, basically he says object detection, right? So how did you came to learn these things? Okay, so putting this aside, okay, so now I'm going to mention another question. So what if I'm going to display the same exact picture? Let's say what if I'm going to display the same exact picture to the newborn baby? I want to display this picture for the newborn baby who, let's say he or she might be less than 1 year old. Okay, so can a baby describe this is a picture of a park, this is a picture of a woman, and this is a picture of a dog, and this is a trees, there are a grass? Can a baby describe this? Whatever you describe? Can't, right? Exactly. You guys are telling no, right? So why am I talking about this in a first hand? Okay, so we are a biological machines. Obviously, everyone we understands that, right? Consider like we are a biological machines. We are the best examples of what we mentioned today as AI. It may be a machine learning, or maybe deep learning, whatever we say, right? So we are the best examples, right? See what happens. Let's say we started consuming a data in many different fashions. I mean, consider a newborn baby, right? The first teachers are always your parents. I mean, so we started learning from your parents, right? We started learning how to walk, how to talk, understanding and recognizing a peoples. Then the person grows and he might go for a primary school, higher secondary school, and he learn physics, mathematics, right? He might be finally graduated, he might be getting a degree, he might be start working. So what's happening here? So we each and every day we learn something, right? And by learning such things, and we could able to make some futuristic decisions, what you need to go tomorrow, so what you're going to do tomorrow, or what kind of a degree that you're going to choose, what kind of a knowledge that you're going to gain. So, and one of the best example is what you guys are doing it today right now. So what you guys doing right now, I mean, you guys have decided to spend your valuable 2 hours with me deciding that, so you're going to learn something really awesome in this particular program, right? So that's an example of what we call it as ML, data science, and maybe AI. So we are the best examples, right, ultimately. So saying that, so the human beings want to replicate the same exact things. I mean, the way we learn the data and way we could able to make predictions, we could able to predict what's going to happen in the future. So he want to teach the same exact things to this dumb machines. Okay, as simple as that. Okay, let me just provide you a very simple example so where everyone can able to understand what it is. Okay, saying that, here we go. Okay, so let's say I want to teach a data to this machine. So then this machine understands this data, and I'm going to ask this machine to make some predictions. I mean, I'm going to ask this machine to predict the future. So as simple as that. So let's say we have a data here. A data can be any kind of a data. For example, let's say here we have a CSV file, for example. Okay, so here we have a CSV file. So what is the CSV file? Let's say I have some 30,000 data points. Let's say here this data, as like, I mean, I have a last 3 years of data. What is this last 3 years of data? So let's say this is the electricity data consumption pattern of your home. I mean, let's say I put up a lot of sensors in your home. I collected how much your washing machine, water geyser, it may be air conditioning unit, and maybe any electrical appliances that you have in your home. Let's say I collected all this data in this particular CSV file. Okay, so let's say I have features like, let's say, what is the voltage, what is the current consumption, and what is let's say the bill amounts, for example, right, that you have paid in last 6 months. So let's say I have collected all this data, right? So my aim is pretty much simple. Let's say I want to teach this data to this machine. So once this machine understands the different patterns of the way that you consume the electricity in your home, so machine understands the pattern. So once machine understands the pattern, it produces something called ML model. So then I'm going to ask this machine to make a forecast, saying that what will be my electricity bill forecast for the next 6 months? What will be my electricity bill for the first month, second month, and third month? Okay, so I'm going to ask my machine to predict what will be my electricity bills, right? Isn't it awesome, right? This is what exactly machine learning is all about, right? But so we understand, so we consume data in many different fashions, right? Consider as a human beings, we consume data through visuals, through our human eyes, we consume data through audio, through our ears, we consume data through a sense, and many different fashions, right? Similarly, a machine can consume data in many different ways. We will talk about that one in detail later. Okay, so now saying that, here is the typical workflow of creating a ML model. Okay, see, here we ask this question. So what it takes to build a successful ML model? So what it takes Netflix to build successful ML model? What it takes Uber, for example, to build successful ML model? Okay, saying that here is the typical, a minimum typical workflow, what it takes to build the successful ML model. Consider that. So the way we consume data in many different fashions, a machine can also consume data in many different fashions. A data can be a picture, a data can be a CSV file, a data can be a simple JSON document, it can be a simple text file even, right? Okay, so what would we do? Let's say once you have a data, then you have a machine can be your own PC, laptop, it may be a server on a cloud, whatever it is, right? So let's say the first step, let's say we're going to start with the data preparation. So what is this exactly, the data preparation that I'm talking about? So data preparation is something like a cooking, the way we cook a food in our kitchen. Okay, so what do you mean by that? Okay, so what do you do? Let's say if you want to cook some food, let's say we bring some vegetables, we clean the vegetables, we make sure we remove all the garbages from it, right? We will be having a quality vegetables at the end of the day. We'll put some masala and we will start preparing that particular data, right? I mean, start preparing that particular vegetables, right? So the same process, right? When it comes to data preparation, so a data comes with real-time data comes with a lot of garbages. So there will be something called missing values, there will be outliers. So we need to ensure that we clean and we transform and we prepare, right? So let's say once we have a prepared data, then we go to use IDEs like Jupyter Notebooks. It may be VS Code, wherever we want to write a code, obviously. So let's say here is a script that we're going to write where we go to mention, let's say, what kind of a machine that I'm going to use in order to train my ML model, right? So where is my data is coming from, all the stories we do mention in this IDEs. Let's say once we have a right type of a machine that we need to use for training, let's say we get our training data, we start feeding a data to this machine. It can be a CPU, it can be a GPU, right? So now your machine tries to understand the different patterns from this data, right? So once your machine has been trained with all the data that you have, it's going to produce something called ML model. So then we're going to use something called test data, which we have kept it aside for testing. We're going to use this test data to produce the test results. We're going to check the quality of this ML model. And let's say if your results from the test data is really accurate, if you're really, let's say, satisfied with that result, then comes registering your model to something called model registry. We're going to talk about that one in detail. Okay. So what is this model registry? A model registry is something like a repository where we're going to version our models. Okay. So this is where, let's say, we're going to version our ML model. Let's say you might have one ML model to 10 ML model, maybe you might have n number of ML models, right? So the more the data that you get, the more the retraining happens, the more the models that you have, the more the quality of a model that it becomes, right? Let's say we register all these ML models in this model registry, and let's say we pick up a best version of an ML model, and let's say we deploy that ML model to the production ready environment. Okay, what do you mean by deploying your model to production ready environment? So this is like something like web hosting. Okay, so what do we do in web hosting? Let's say if you go to www.cyclontech.com, it's our website. Let's say you can able to see about the company, about the courses that we offer, and other details, right? It's a web that we are hosting. Similarly, let's say we have a model that we have trained, we can able to host it. I mean, we can able to deploy it, and where we have our developers who are going to create this beautiful web applications, maybe Android applications, where your clients, your customers can able to interact with this particular ML models, right? So we understand already what is exactly ML is, right? So machine learning is basically the understands the study of an algorithm and a mathematical model that your computer system uses progressively improve on a specific task, right? It's putting it in another way, it's all about the mathematics, right? We teach complex mathematical models to machine. Once this machine understands the complex mathematical models, then we can ask this machine to make some predictions. We can able to ask it to predict what is going to happen in the future, or to predict the difference between apple and orange, right? Or maybe men and women, right? Basically what we're talking about, let's say computer vision, right? And again, when it comes to machine learning or maybe AI or maybe data science, whatever we're talking about, so this is not something that is going to happen in the next 10 years. We are literally aware about that one, right? So we are presently in an age of AI already. So we are every day we are consuming one or two applications of AI. For example, we can see your face recognition systems that you have in your phone. I mean, every smartphones today, right, has a face unlocking system. I mean, if you bring your selfie camera to your face, it can able to recognize your face, it can able to unlock your face, isn't it? Yes. Then comes, let's say, we can talk about Amazon Alexa, we can talk about Apple Siri, maybe Google Home, Google Voice Assistant, right? Again, our deep learning technologies, I mean the AI devices that we're using. Again, obviously, right, we don't want to move forward without mentioning Chat GPT, right? You might have heard about how Chat GPT is progressing, how it is occupying the different sectors. I mean, how developers are using Chat GPT, is how let's say the blog writers, legal documents, people, how they use this Chat GPT, right? Okay, so now we're going to talk about why MLOps is really important, where MLOps comes into the picture. Let's get started. So we're going to use various different programming languages, right? So we might use Python, we might use R, or maybe JavaScript or C++ to build this ML models, right? But what is MLOps? We understand all this stuff, but what is MLOps? Otherwise, a machine learning operations. Okay, so what is machine learning operations? Before we understanding what is MLOps, we need to understand what's the current state of machine learning today in the world. I mean, we need to understand where is exactly every organizations today in the journey of ML. Okay, here comes the awesome slide. Okay, so this is the particular data that we have captured from AWS AI Conclave 2023 in Bangalore. So this is what it says. Okay, so now in order to understand this particular slide, we need to do time travel to last decade. Okay, let's get started. Let's do time travel right now. Okay, so now we are in the last decade. Okay, so what do you mean by last decade? We're going to understand what exactly these organizations, MNCs, all the different companies are doing last 10 years. Okay, last 10 years, I mean, consider that every companies, every organizations, they started collecting lot of data, right? So they have all data but doing nothing, right? So at that particular time, they started hiring a lot of data engineers and data scientists to build this ML model, right? In that perspective, so they're largely focusing on building an ML model, but operationalizing that particular ML is afterthought. I mean, they are not focused at that particular time to operationalize that, to deploy and to generate some revenues out of it. That's not the focus at that particular time. Okay, let's try to understand what's happening today. So today, every organization has at least a POC to get started, proof of concept. I mean, today, 53% of organizations, they're transferring their POC to production. I mean, their POCs are getting into production, right? So that's why you could able to see a lot of AI tools coming outside, starting from ChatGPT, and last week itself, you can see starting from Microsoft, it may be Meta, it may be Google has released a lot of AI tools, right? Okay, so it might take an average of 9 months, right, once they have an ML model to reach this particular point. Okay, so now let's try to understand by end of 2024, 75% of organizations will shift from piloting to operationalizing their AI. That's what it's going to happen. Okay, so why do you need to care about this? Why this is going to be matter for you, right? Okay, only if organizations have the solid ML pipelines, I mean talking about the MLOps pipelines, that's the only possibilities where organizations can go to production. Okay, so to that, we need to understand what is exactly MLOps. Okay, let's get started. Let's try to understand what is MLOps. MLOps, otherwise machine learning operations. So basically it's a set of practices and the collaboration between the different stakeholders who are part of ML model building process. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by the different stakeholders who is part of building ML model? So do you think data scientist is the only person who is responsible for building everything in this particular scenario? Not exactly, right? Do you think data scientist is the only person to build everything as part of ML model? Not exactly. So there are different stakeholders who are part of this particular system. So for example, there are data engineers who is working on top of a data. They get the data, prepare it, transform it if it is necessary. Then comes our data scientist, will take a data and he will pick up an algorithm. He trains a quality ML model, which is going to be a final end product. So then comes our ML engineer who's going to take that model and we're going to deploy that model in any production server or maybe the cloud platform that you would like to go. So then comes the CI/CD pipelines and other stuff. Then comes our developers who are going to connect all the missing pieces, right? So there are many different stakeholders. The collaboration between them, what we call it as MLOps, basically, right? Saying that, let's say applying this particular practices can able to increase the quality. I mean, applying the MLOps practices can able to increase the quality and it could able to simplify the management process. And basically MLOps, what we call it as otherwise an automation. The automation that we're building for ML model deployments, it may be the deep learning model deployments in the large production environments that you want to deploy. Okay, so now let's try to understand the MLOps motivation for the high level. How does an MLOps motivation looks like in a high level? Okay, let's get started. So MLOps motivation, basically, as we mentioned, it's a discipline that sits intersection between the various domains of, let's say, machine learning. It might be combination of data engineering, combination of DevOps, what we call it as, let's say, MLOps. So let's say intersection of these practices, when it comes together, it will really drive a value in how we build, deliver, and manage your ML models, actually, right? So MLOps is a discipline that enabled with a core set of practices that spanned by a people along with technology and maybe the process, right? Okay, we understand this. Okay, now what is the challenges here, right? Let's say I want to get started with MLOps, or maybe any organizations when they are getting started with MLOps, what would be the greater challenges? Okay, let's discuss that now. Okay, so what are the challenges? So we understand. So we have data engineers, we have data analysts, we have data scientists, even we have DevOps people here. Okay, so we understand in the process of, let's say, creating and managing ML workflows, we ran into a lot of different challenges. For example, we can talk about the three aspects here. For example, data preparation, model training, and model deployment. Okay, so not only we have these steps actually, and there are really a lot of things goes into stitching different workflows together actually here, right? So we have to stitch up data preparation with data model training with model deployment. Okay, let's go through each and every aspect here. So what do we do usually in data preparation, right? So in your data preparation step, you might contain one to many tasks, let's say taking raw data and we convert that into, let's say, training data set, validation data set, or maybe test data set, for example, right? So then comes a model training step. So once you have a data, then we go to a model training step. So here you might have some additional steps inside your model training. Let's say whether you are doing single model training, or you might be running a different experiments using hyperparameter tuning jobs. I mean, we have a lot of different experiments to conduct, right? So then comes model deployment step. Okay, so in your model deployment step, you might have only one step in your workflow, or you could have many tasks underneath it. For example, it could be where you want to deploy your ML models to different stages. For example, I want to deploy my model to dev environment. Let's say I want to deploy my model to production environment, right? So we'll be having two different environments. A dev environment is for our developers, I mean our data scientists to come and check the quality of your ML model that has been deployed, for example. So dev environment is an exact replica of our production environment. So the production environment is something that is faced by your customers, and again you'll be having many different controls underneath it. For example, let's say if we are retraining the models, and let's say if you want to deploy your ML models to do two different environments here, we don't want to manually go and deploy, so we don't want to, let's say, automatically deploy your ML models to both dev and prod. Instead of that, let's say we apply this best practices. Let's say we will have this control saying that approval process. Let's say someone in your hierarchy, in your team, they want to come and manually approve your ML model, saying that do you need to deploy it to production or not, right? So saying that, so there are a lot of different steps, there are a lot of different dependencies has to work together to ultimately build this and build out something that provides an iteration across the life cycle of your ML model building process, and also to provide, let's say, an end-to-end traceability to track models that you have trained in, let's say, a development environment, whether you want to deploy to the production environment. So you need to have this end-to-end traceability, tracking each and everything, what's happening in your data preparation, what is happening in your model training, what's happening in your model deployment and post-deployment too. Okay, saying that, when we talk about MLOps, right, we have a lot of DevOps people here, right? So when we talk about MLOps, we also relate to one of the related term called DevOps, right? So what is this DevOps and what is this MLOps, right? So let's consider in the perspective of MLOps challenges similar to DevOps, right? So the challenges in operationalizing your ML model has a lot of common relations with the software production. Actually, let's say CI/CD practices, what we call in DevOps, or maybe the source and version control, what we call in DevOps, is common here. DevOps, when it comes to DevOps, the traditional tools that we do use in DevOps is common when it comes to MLOps. But see, a lot of times what we call it as the CI/CD tools aren't necessarily built for machine learning separately. Actually, that's the biggest problem. In reality, what happens, you might use different combinations of tools and, let's say, integrations, something that purpose built for your data preparation. There are purpose built for model training. There are purpose built tools for model deployment. So all these things, that it can be complicated and challenging basically to stitch each and everything together. And more complicated than this will be, there is no really a golden pipeline that you can able to follow. What do you mean by that? Let's say you might be working in an organization. So let's say your organization will have different requirements considering to another organization. So what do you mean by that? Let's say if I draft an architecture right now saying that this is the tool that you're going to use, this is the deployment tool that you're going to use, right? So this is not going to be common for every different organizations. As I mentioned, the requirement for technical implementations will be different. Your organization structure would be different. Tools you might need to integrate might be different. There are multiple aspects, right? But what is so much common, right? So what is going to be so much common would be the steps and the core components that I'm going to recommend here in this particular session, or maybe in our course, is going to be common actually. Okay, so usually when it comes to MLOps, we'll be having this following steps. We'll be having our source and version control tools, right? So what do you mean by that? Let's say, for example, as a data engineer, as a data scientist, we'll be writing a lot of different scripts, isn't it? We write Python code, for example. So where are you going to store all this code? How are you going to version it? Obviously, this is where source and version control tools comes into picture. For example, it may be GitHub, it may be something on top of a cloud platform, it may be Azure repos, it may be code commit on top of AWS, or maybe something on GCP, right? So then comes tracking and versioning your data. Okay, this might be sounds new for you, right? Tracking and versioning a data. So why do we need to track and version your data? Don't you feel that the data is not going to be changing? Yes, the data will keep on changing. I would like to provide you a very quick example. Let's talk about a quick story. Let's consider that. Let's go to 2019. Let's say you guys have built, let's say, ML model to a theater owners to predict the sales forecast. Let's say you built an ML model for a theater owners to predict the tickets sales forecast, basically to predict the revenue they're going to make. So you are good at data engineering, good at data science, for example. And let's say you didn't care about MLOps. Let's say all you did, you built an ML model, you have a quality, the highest quality ML model, you deployed it. So you did expect that this model is going to work perfectly fine for the next 10 years. You expected it, but this model just failed in the next 6 months. This model become useless completely in next 6 months. What would be the reason? Couple of reasons. The COVID, you know, like what happened around 2019, the COVID comes in picture, right? Once the COVID comes in picture, everyone went to lockdown, all the theaters been closed, no one went to theaters for watching movies. During our COVID itself, you might have seen that OTTs completely took over the market, right? People started spending a lot of time in OTTs. We started spending more time on Netflix. It may be Amazon Prime, it may be Disney, right? Whatever it is, right? So, and you can able to see your customer behavior has been started shifting. That means your customers are your data. You have different customer behavior before COVID, and during COVID and after COVID, you have different customer behavior. So if you don't have the proper tools to version your data, you don't know whether your customer behavior has been changing or not. If you don't have the proper tools to monitor your model in order to monitor what we call it as data drift or maybe concept drift, you never know what's happening, right? So that's why tracking and versioning is really important. So then comes, let's say, model and model artifacts version. Let's say you have two versions of data. That means what? You're going to have two versions of your ML model. So where are you going to version this model? Are you going to put it in a GitHub? No, GitHub is not meant for that. So there are specific tools that you're going to use it in order to version your ML models. There are specific tools that you're going to use in order to version your data. Okay, isn't it sounds awesome? So we're going to learn a lot right now. So make sure you stay till end of the session so you can able to gain the more benefits out of this particular session, and you can able to enjoy the live demo that I prepared, and you can also download the free ebooks only if you stay till end of the session. Let's get started. The point number 2, what it takes to master MLOps. Today we have data engineers, data analysts, DevOps people, data and other stakeholders are part of it. So what it takes to master MLOps, right? So to that, so first, we need to understand the various different components of MLOps. What I'm talking about, MLOps components. So here comes the MLOps components. So what are the basic things that you're going to have in terms of MLOps? First thing, let's say we're going to start from a use case discovery, right? Obviously, let's say your organization should have some use cases. They figure out that. So then comes data engineering part. So let's say they have a use case, they have a data, right? And let's say now they're getting started with a data engineering aspect. They prepare data, transform it if it is necessary. Then comes machine learning pipeline building process. This is a step where we build ML pipelines. Then comes production deployment. Once you have a pipeline, once you have a model that is trained through pipeline, we take that model, we deploy that model to a production. Then comes production monitoring step. This is where we monitor a model that has been deployed to a production. Okay, so we want to split it in details. Let's say we get started with a business understanding. Let's say we have our business team in your organization along with data analysts. They sit together, they understand the business, the data. They try to identify the possible use cases. Then if the use case is identified, then the next step would be understanding the data. Do they have a data? Do they have the pipelines that is built to bring in a data from various different sources? So they do all this feasibility study. So once everything is okay, then the next step, they will be getting started with data preparation. Let's say this is where our data engineers come to the picture. They started preparing all this data. So then comes learning about algorithm. So here we pick up the right algorithm that it could able to solve the problem of this particular data that we're talking about. So then we build our ML model. And so we train the ML model where it will be producing, let's say, ML models that we can able to use it to deploy to the production. So before we produce an ML model, so we're going to conduct various different experiments, for example, hyperparameter tuning jobs in order to produce the best version of your ML model. So once you have a best version of your ML model, let's say then we do model evaluation. This is where we're going to test your ML model. We're going to grab what we call it as a metrics, accuracy, all those informations. Then we're going to think about model serving steps. So now we have a best quality of an ML model. So now in the process of deployment, this is where we build this automation, what I'm talking about, integrating CI/CD tools, right, for continuous integration and continuous deployment. And let's say we're going to have this operations to build where we can able to monitor our ML models, the post deployment. We're going to monitor our ML model for a data drift or maybe concept drift, and we're going to further optimize it in case if, let's say, if any drift has been identified. Let's say our model monitoring tools will send signal to CI/CD tools to say that to start preparing the data once again, to automatically start doing a data training, model training and model deployment automatically. Everything will be done automatically. If you want to understand this steps in detail, let's say as part of a use case discovery. So this is where our collaboration between our business team and data scientists will happen. So basically they will be defining a business problem and they will be translating that into the feasible problem statement. So then they're going to set an objectives that should be solved by this ML model that you're going to use with the associated KPIs, what we call it as key performance indicators. So then comes our data engineers. So usually our data engineers will work closely with data scientists to acquire data from various different sources. For example, as an organization, so you will be having a data coming from not from one central repository, you might be having various different sources where you get a data, right? So then comes data preparation and pre-processing step, right? So then comes machine learning pipeline step. So this is where we build, design and deploy our ML pipelines integrated with CI/CD tools. It maybe you want to use AWS code pipelines, you want to use Azure pipelines, you might want to use, let's say, the tools on top of GCP. Otherwise, you want to use, let's say, the open source tools like Jenkins, for example. So here, our data scientists will use these pipelines that we have built to conduct various different experiments and testing processes. So basically, we need to ensure that the platform that is built can able to track a data and a model linear age with the associated KPIs across the experiments that we have conducted. So then comes production deployment step. Let's say if everything goes good, you have a quality ML model. So now we need to deploy our model on top of a secure and seamless deployment process through, maybe you want to deploy it on top of public cloud, maybe you want to deploy it on top of AWS, Azure, GCP, or maybe on top of your on-premises itself by using open source tools, and maybe you're looking forward for the hybrid deployment, for example, right? So then comes post-deployment part, that is model monitoring. That is not just a model monitoring, we can say production monitoring. So just monitoring your ML model along with the infrastructure that you have built for MLOps pipeline. The infrastructure, the steps that you're taking for data preparation, model building, the CI/CD pipeline, and the model monitoring. We have to monitor everything continuously with the associated KPIs in order to check if there is any input data distribution or changes in your model performance. Actually, okay, saying that, let's move on to the very important slide right now, which is going to give you the more insights from this particular program. Here comes the automated ML pipelines versus the CI/CD pipelines. So what do you mean by that? Ultimately, what we are trying to do is moving from automated ML workflows to completely incorporated CI/CD practices. Okay, now let's completely forget about MLOps. Let's say, what do we do usually? So usually, let's say we have a data, we start doing data preparation. If your data is prepared, let's say we pick up a machine and we start training our ML model. And once the model is available, we go and deploy it, right? That's what exactly we do. If you believe if this is going to bring a success to an organization, you are wrong. It's definitely not. It's definitely not going to bring a success for a long run. So what it takes to build a successful MLOps pipeline for organization, this is the basic tools that you might have, right, in your pipeline that you're going to build. So let's say we're going to start from, again, ML project identification. Let's say an organization has a proper project to get started. Then comes data, correct? So this is where we started accumulating a data from various different sources. Maybe as an organization, you might be having your own centralized database where you're getting a data. You might be having a Salesforce database where you're getting a data. Let's say we accumulate all this data. So this is where data version control tools comes to the picture. As we mentioned, an example of COVID, what I mentioned. So we will be having our different versions of data here based on a customer behavior. So we're going to use a different data version control tools that are available in the market based on your organization's requirement. We're going to pick the right data version control tool. For example, we can say DVC, which is called data version control tool, which is open source. So we're going to version our data in a data version control tools. Then comes data preparation step. Data pre-processing step. Let's say here our data engineers will start writing a script, maybe in Python or whatever the language that you're feasible with. So this is where we start doing a data preparation. So again, as part of data preparation, our data engineer will write a lot of code, maybe in Python. So how are we going to version that particular code? This is where our code repositories, for example, GitHub, right, comes into the picture, where we're going to use it to version our code. Right? Then comes model building step. This is where our data scientists will start writing an algorithm. Start writing a code to pick up an algorithm, pick a data from data version control tool, and let's say this code will be also versioned in our code repositories. So once you have an access to data, right? So now we'll be starting preparing, model training step. So this is where our model will be start training. So once end of this model training process, so we'll be having model artifacts. But before, in the process of model training, we'll be also using something called feature store. A feature store, and putting in a very simple layman terms, it's a schema repository for the features that you're going to use in order to train your ML model. So what is this features again? Let's say we're going to train ML model to predict electricity bill forecast, your old age, the current, or maybe the previous bill amounts would be your features, for example. So we'll be having a feature store, we'll be having a schema which is going to maintain that features. So once your model is being trained, then it's going to produce something called model and model artifacts. So this is where we have our ML model. So this is where we're going to use something called model registry. This is where we're going to version our ML models. So this is where we're going to have a version 1, version 2, or maybe version n number of models. And once you have, let's say, the model version 1 to model version 10, for example, let's say here we're going to pick up the best version of a model with a better accuracy, then we're going to deploy that ML model to the production ready environment. So this is where we integrate with all the let's say front-end application and other things. Then here we're going to do this automation, basically integrating with CI/CD pipelines. Maybe you want to containerize your ML models, you want to deploy it on top of Dockers, maybe Kubernetes, or however you want. So then we're going to have a couple of feedback loops here. For example, we call it as automated quality gates. What is this automated quality gates? How it's going to be useful? Let's say in the process of your model training process, let's say you're going to take a decision saying that whether it's a good model or not. Is that fit? Is that a good model to deploy? I mean, is that a good model to be registered under a model registry or not? How do we do that? So by using this quality gate, let's say if I'm training a model on top of regression, for example, let's say I'm going to use MSE score, for example, I'm going to check if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, right? I'm going to deploy this, register this model to model registry. If it is greater than 7, it's not going to register the model to model registry at all. That's how it's going to work. You can also have automated quality gates in a data preparation step in order to have a checkpoints to check the data whether it is being pre-processed successfully or not. Okay, isn't it awesome to know this particular workflow? Yes, but who is going to do what? I am a data engineer, I'm a data scientist, I'm a data analyst, I'm a developer, I'm a DevOps person. Who is going to do what exactly here, right? So let's discuss that. So different roles involved in MLOps actually. So basically when we talk about the roles, let's say another aspect is, let's say when we talk about developing a successful ML model, right, or creating a successful ML project, it involves varieties of experience required, extreme collaboration needed among the teams here. So for example, let's say we want to get started with 3 questions that we want to ask for an organization. First of all, do you need to build an ML model, right? Most of the time, let's say you don't need ML model, maybe you can write a simple logics to solve that, right? So first of all, then let's say if you have a way to, okay, you need to build an ML model, that's awesome. Then the next question would be how to get the data. That's a main important concept. So do you have a proper resources to get a data, right? And what is the infrastructure that is required, right? For example, do you have the resources? Do you have the right roles? Do you have the right peoples to build that, right? So not every organizations are going to have this particular roles. For example, let's say we talk about the startups, right? Startups doesn't have such a resources to hire teams of data engineers, a team of data scientists, a team of DevOps peoples here, because they have very limited resources. In that perspective, they hire someone called a full stack data scientist, a full stack ML engineer. When the word full stack comes to the picture, he will be the person who will be doing everything end to end. He will be the person who will be responsible for preparing a data, training an ML model, building MLOps pipeline, everything, right? But usually when it comes to the huge organizations like MNCs, usually we'll be having a separate team responsible for doing different aspects. So for example, let's say our data analyst, right? So our data analysts, they will be working closely with, let's say, product manager and business team. Basically, the ultimate duty for them is to drive insights from your client data or user data. So basically, our data analyst will use tools like SQL, Excel sheets, or maybe the range of data visualization tools like Tableau or maybe Power BI, basically to generate insights. So then comes our data engineer. So he will be responsible for creating an infrastructure to collect, transform, or pre-process and store your data basically, right? So he will be using tools like Spark, it may be Hadoop based tools, or ETL based tools, what we call it as extract, transform, and load jobs, right? So then comes our dear data scientist. He will be the one who will be building an actual ML model, which will become the part of the final end product. So then comes research or applied scientists. So usually you don't see those particular job roles, but usually, let's say the organizations who are working in a bleeding edge technologies, it may be, we can say Google, Amazon, it may be Microsoft, for example. So they will be having this kind of roles. Basically, these people would be responsible for creating a new algorithm for various product related areas they are working on. Okay. So then comes ML engineer. So our ML engineer, basically their work will be overlapped with data engineers, and they will be largely focusing on, let's say, ML model and related infrastructure, because the ultimate aim for them is to take a model that is built by a data scientist and to deploy that in a production ready environment. So then comes DevOps team. So usually when it comes to MLOps, we don't call it as a DevOps team. Otherwise, we call it as ML engineer, basically, right? So you will be the person who will be responsible for handling the CI/CD pipelines, creating test scenarios and other aspects. Let's say then comes our developer. We can say the last piece of a puzzle, right? So he will be basically integrating everything with the main application. So whatever the things that we have done by data analysts, data scientists, data engineers, everything will be integrated by our our developer, where he will be creating a beautiful front-end applications. For example, creating web application or Android application that your clients can able to use, right? Okay, saying this, so let's have a quick comparison between what does MLOps looks like and what does DevOps looks like, right? There will be always some confusion around that. So when it comes to DevOps, right? So when it comes to DevOps, it's all about the software development lifecycle. So in order to develop software, right? So in order to maintain the software development lifecycle. So here we all worry about building a generic application. It may be Android app, web app, e-commerce app. So what are the applications that you would like to build? So as part of a DevOps, we'll be using a standard set of libraries, right, for a specific use case that you want to solve. So here, all we care about the version controls, which involves, let's say, tracking on changes on the code and artifacts that we have produced. So the artifacts would be the most of the time would be the executable jar files. And how do we validate our DevOps application? For example, it can be unit test. There are a couple of other tests that we talk about. And usual roles who are involved in this, maybe software engineers and DevOps professionals, obviously. So when it comes to MLOps, so here we care about building an ML model to feed inferences, to generate predictions. So when it comes to ML, we're going to use the broad scope of tools, languages, and libraries. Just imagine the amount of Python libraries that we use in the process of building ML model, right? So here we not only care about, let's say, just maybe like a code. Here we have a lot of things to consider. For example, data versioning, model artifacts versioning, model registries, source and version control, all those things that we discussed. So artifacts would be serialization files. And how do we validate our ML model? Obviously, we calculate something called metrics, otherwise performance, right? Precision, recall, F1 score, blah, 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 other different things. So the different roles who is involved, it can be data scientists, ML engineers, and other stakeholders that I specified in a previous slide, but I didn't specify all this stuff here. Okay, saying that, now we will be moving on to the very important step, understanding the various different tools that are available in the market. How do you pick it? Let's say if you are a person that you're going to work for an organization, so how do you going to pick the right kind of a tool that you can able to use? There are some guidelines that we can able to stick to. So for example, the first thing comes into the picture, open source or a closed source tools, right? So always organizations don't rely on, let's say, the cloud platform itself or maybe the paid tools itself, right? So we do use open source tool sets, correct? Okay. When it comes to open source tool sets, we understand open source is always free, right? But the only difficulty is in the process of using open source tools, it will be difficult to integrate with your environment. So this would be the problem when you have very few developers in your organizations to work with, right? So then comes platform versus specific tool. So there are organizations, there are companies, they provide a complete tool for you to get started with MLOps. They have everything in a one single platform itself. You can able to pay a subscription for that particular organization, and you can able to get started with the pipeline building process. So where we can also call it as an auto ML tools, for example. Okay. So then comes model and production environmental monitoring. Let's say if you're building or picking the right tool from a market, you need to understand, do they have the proper model and production environment monitoring tools, right? We understand it's really important to monitor your ML model in order to figure out if there is any data drift or concept drift, or monitoring your complete infrastructure also comes into the picture, right? So in order to ensure if the production bugs are documented and addressed, and again, when it comes to MLOps team, to catch things like security and compliance is concerned from the pipelines that you have built. Then comes model templating and cataloging. This is a very much important aspect. Okay, today in your organization, you might be building one ML model where you're integrating the MLOps pipeline with that. Is your organization going to build only one ML model? Are they not going to work with different clients tomorrow? That's going to happen, right? So you don't want to reinvent your wheel again and again. So once you have your MLOps pipelines where the MLOps tool that you're going to pick, it should let you template and catalog the pipeline that you have built, and you can able to use the same template again and again for the multiple projects that you're going to build in your organization. So then comes model training, tuning, and drift management. And what we are talking about, the automated model training, automated data preparation, automated model deployment process, right? So as a data engineer, as a data scientist, you don't want to run your code again and again whenever you want to produce the new version of your ML model. It has to happen automatically, because here we are talking about automation in MLOps, right? So we want, let's say, whenever there is a drift has been identified, our pipeline should start executing automatically in order to automated data preparation, automated model training, and automated model deployment, right? So then comes pipeline management tools. So as part of a pipeline management tools, your pipeline should have an automated trigger update build process. What do you mean by that? Let's say you might be having a various different steps. You might be having a data preparation step. You might be having a model training step. You might be having a model deployment step. You need to have this pipeline to be configured in such a way in order to send a trigger accordingly, right? So whenever the data preparation is done, you need to send an email saying that data preparation is done, right? Alerting, basically. Then comes collaboration and communication capabilities, right? So not only you have tools where you can able to monitor the infrastructure or maybe the alerting systems, you need to have a proper collaboration and communication tools in order to communicate with the stakeholders that is responsible for building ML project. So you should have a feature to document your commands, questions, and maybe they're taking a notes on your ML model, right? Right. So basically, let's say if you want to integrate your Slack application, maybe the Trello or other project management application along with that. Saying that, so now we will get started with talking about MLOps on top of a cloud, what MLOps has been offered on top of 3 cloud platforms. So here in this course, MLOps specialization program, we're going to cover the 3 biggest players in the cloud industry. That means AWS, Azure, and GCP. Right? So obviously, so AWS, Azure, and GCP as the major stakeholders in the cloud industry. Most of the machine learning happens on top of these 3 cloud platforms, right? Saying that AWS so MLOps specialization course is being part of not just one single cloud platform. We will be covering AWS, Azure, and GCP. And this might not be enough, isn't it? So not all these organizations only use tools on top of AWS or Azure or GCP. They do use open source tool sets, right? They might be having on-premises data center, or even though on top of a cloud platform, they want to use open source tool sets, maybe to cut down their operating costs, right? Yes, we do also cover open source tools on top of this particular program. Okay, let's get started. What are the different varieties of tools that are available for Git? Basically, what I'm talking about, source version control. All the source version controls uses Git as a unique language. I mean, so the command line interface. So let's say the way that we use GitHub is exactly same the way that we use AWS code commit, the repository, the code repository on top of AWS, the repository on top of GCP, or maybe Azure repos on top of Azure, or maybe using a Bitbucket, right? So there are different varieties of tools an organization can able to pick in order to version your data. So then comes continuous integration and continuous deployment tool, what I'm talking about, the CI/CD. So we understand CI/CD, otherwise continuous integration and continuous deployment. Let's understand in the perspective of DevOps, then we will try to understand in the perspective of MLOps, right? Okay, so now here is a quick example of continuous integration and continuous deployment, what we call it as CI/CD. Okay, let's say now you are a developer. Let's say you have an e-commerce website. Okay, so let's say you have an e-commerce website where customers are clicking a pay now, which is in a green color, to buy a product. Let's say from past one month, let's say you're getting a lot of complaints from your customer saying that I don't like this green color. I want the button to be in red color, which might attract more customers, right? So now what happens, our developer will start editing a code. I mean, he'll start producing a new feature. I mean, he's updating his button from green to red. And then he will be pushing the code to GitHub, which is a code repository that we have. Let's say here we have two different branches. One is dev, one is prod, development environment and production environment. So then we're going to use a CI/CD tools, for example, code pipelines on top of AWS, which is going to build your code and it's going to produce an artifacts. And we're going to use these artifacts to deploy on top of a web server, right? So because we are talking about DevOps. So here we have two different environments. One is dev and one is production. Initially, our developer will deploy our application to dev, and you're going to come and check it out here, saying that whether the button has changed to red color or not. If he has validated if the feature is exactly working without any errors, in the next step, you're going to deploy the same feature to the production environment. So now, both in dev and both in prod, so we have the button is in red, right? The same kind of a workflow could be followed when it comes to MLOps pipelines. Let's say here, let's consider we have our developer, for example. Let's say, I mean, it may be a data engineer or maybe our data scientist or whoever it is. Let's say he will be editing a code, and let's say he will be pushing the code to our code repository. So here, when it comes to MLOps pipeline, we'll be having a various different steps. Let's say the first step would be the feature engineering step. Let's say this is where we do all the feature engineering stuff, data preparation, everything. So once our data is ready, then comes our training step. This is where we will be start doing model training. So once your model has been trained, then comes a pre-processing step. This is where we evaluate your ML model. And let's say as part of an evaluation, let's say here we generate metrics. For example, let's say we calculate MSE score, right? And then we have a condition step. Otherwise, we call it as automated quality gate that we discussed. So we're going to use this automated quality gate just to check in case if my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, then I'm going to register my model to model registry. Otherwise, if it is greater than 7, it is not going to register my model to model registry. So once you have a best version of a model that is available in the model registry, let's say again we're going to use let's say the CI/CD tools over here, let's say in order to build and deploy. Let's say you want to containerize your ML models. Let's say you build a Docker image, and let's say then once the image is available, let's say we want to deploy it on top of a model hosting environment. Again, same process. Initially, we're going to deploy our model to dev environment. Then we're going to validate the quality of your ML model that is deployed in a dev environment. If you're really satisfied with that, then we're going to deploy the model to production environment. So where your actual users comes and interacts with your ML model. So what are the different varieties of tools that are available for CI/CD? For example, AWS code pipeline, which is integrated with AWS code commit or maybe AWS code build or code deploy. When it comes to GCP, we have AWS, the GCP code build, and GCP has support for repositories and artifacts, and along with code build and a code run, cloud run. So then comes Azure. Azure also offers the set of tools under DevOps suite. So where we have a set of tools like creating Azure pipelines in the process of creating a pipeline process, Azure repositories for storing your code, and we have Azure boards for the task. Then we have artifacts and test plans. So saying that, let's say maybe not every organization going to deploy their ML models on top of a cloud platform. Maybe they want to deploy it on top of containerization platforms. Maybe they want to deploy it on top of Docker containers, right? Or maybe they want to deploy it on top of container orchestration services like Kubernetes. So this is where we're going to also cover Dockers. What is Dockers? How are you going to containerize your ML models? How are you going to deploy it on top of Dockers? Or how are you going to deploy your ML models on Kubernetes clusters? Otherwise, how can you use the Kubernetes clusters on top of cloud platforms like Amazon has something called EKS, which stands for Elastic Kubernetes Service, or Azure has something called AKS, which stands for Azure Kubernetes Service. Then comes model management tools. So as I mentioned, maybe if an organization want to cut down their cost, I don't want to burn a lot of money, right? So most of the organizations, they're going to use tools like MLflow, which is a tool for experimentation and model registry, right? You can track all your experiments and you can able to use MLflow as a model registry. So then using tools like DVC in order to version your data. Alternatively to DVC, you can also use Git large files to version your data. Then comes feature stores, as I mentioned, a schema repository, right? So there are different kinds of feature stores that are available in the market, talking about Amazon SageMaker feature store, Vertex AI feature store, Tecton, or maybe the open source feature store, which is very famous, Feast, or maybe HubSpot, are creating your own feature store on top of DynamoDB or S3, are using Databricks as a feature store. So then comes cloud ML services. This is where your most of the time models will get trained. Let's say, for example, when it comes to Amazon SageMaker offers something called SageMaker Studio, which is a studio which is incorporated with everything that you need in order to get started with MLOps. They got everything. Or maybe using Vertex AI on top of GCP, using Azure machine learning services. All these three platforms and three different cloud platforms, they offer the complete studio for you to get started with the pipeline building process, model registries, feature stores, data versioning, everything. And again, maybe your organization don't want to use cloud platform, they want to cut down their cost, or maybe they want to use open source platforms like Kubeflow, which has been already covered in this particular program. So using Kubeflow which is going to run on top of Kubernetes clusters in order to create on open source pipelines. Then comes monitoring your ML model, right? So we have a solid ML pipelines. Let's say now you have deployed your ML models to production ready environment, and now it's time to monitor your ML models through AWS or Azure or GCP provided SDKs. Still, if you don't want to use cloud platforms, you can able to use open source tools like Evidently AI to monitor your ML model. Otherwise, let's say if an organization want to get started with auto ML tools, as I mentioned, they are the subscription based platforms where you want to quickly create a pipeline. So you can also use open source, auto ML tools, basically subscription platforms where you can pay a subscription and utilize their services like Azure, Domino Data Labs, Olohai, or maybe Neptune.ai, or weights and biases. Then comes a post deployment challenges. Okay, now you have deployed your ML model. That's awesome. So now what happens next? What happens after deployment of your model, right? Here comes the post deployment challenges. The challenges related to software engineering. So what are the software engineering challenges? For example, talking about the traffic, understanding how much of traffic that it can handle using load balancers, right? So for example, consider ChatGPT. We understand ChatGPT crashes very regularly because of the traffic, right? How do we handle that, right? So then comes ML related challenges, for example, right? So then comes challenges in deploying your ML models to edge devices, maybe IoT devices, right? Saying that, we have discussed a lot of different things. Won't it be fun if we have a demo right now? I have built a demo right now. I'm going to show it. I'm going to show you a demo only if you stay till end of the session, okay? So still we're going to have a solid 1 hour. Okay, I'm going to show you a live demo where I have built on top of AWS. The second thing, if you stay till end of the session, you can able to download the free ebooks. Okay, the informative ebooks from AWS, Azure, and GCP. Okay, stay till end of the session. So now let's get started with the live demo. Okay, here we go. So here I have already built a pipeline on top of AWS for model building, training, and deployment. So this is the SageMaker Studio will looks like. And here I have, as I mentioned, here I have 2 different repositories, the code repositories. Usually our data engineers and data scientists will commit a code. So here we have a repository for model deploy and model build. And if I go to pipelines, this is the first pipeline that I created, which is called demo April. If I open that particular pipeline, you can able to see that my pipeline has executed once, right? Let's say if this pipeline is executing twice, thrice, or next 10 times, you're going to have a 10 different logs here. I have right now only 1 log. That means 10 executions means 10 ML models that you're going to have, right? So let's say here I have my previous execution, which has succeeded. If I go inside that particular pipeline, you can able to see the actual pipeline that I built. So here are the blogs which represents what I did so far, and the use case that I'm working here basically in order to predict an age of an abalone. If you don't understand what is abalone, you can just Google it. An abalone is a kind of a sea snail. It's a seafood basically that we're using in order to predict the age of an abalone, because an abalone could be sold in the market based on an age, right? Based on an age, the price of an abalone that you can buy varies. So here we are using this pipeline to predict an age of an abalone. So here we have a steps that I built. So for example, here we have a pre-processing abalone data. So what do we have in the process of pre-processing? As I mentioned, all we do have, let's say we are splitting our data into test, validation and training data, and I'm storing my data into a storage platform called S3 on top of AWS. So in data preprocessing step, I'm basically preprocessing my data. So once you have an access to data, what else that we do? Then we will be getting started with training an abalone model, right? So this is where we start training our abalone model. So once in the process of model training, this is where we get model.tar.gz that is going to be actual ML models, model which is actually produced by AWS. And this ML model is stored in S3 bucket. And here we have a model accuracy on both training and validation. That is root means square error value that I've calculated. Once your model has been trained, then comes evaluating your ML model. As part of an evaluation, this is where I calculate a metrics. For example, here I calculate MSE score. I might calculate standard deviation, right? Where I can able to use this metrics to take a better decision whether to deploy this model to production or not. So here I have my model metrics exported as a JSON file to my S3 bucket where I can able to use further. Then comes check MSE abalone evaluation. This is what I'm talking about, actual quality gate. So here is a quality gate which is actually checking the metrics from evaluate abalone model, which is actually checking if my let's say the MSE score is less than or equal to 7, I'm saying register this model to model registry. Otherwise, don't register my model to model registry. So the condition has been passed. That's why you can see it is actually less than 7. And that's why if I go to my register abalone model, you can see my model has been registered to model registry. Here you can see actual MSE score that is 3.98, which is actually less than or equal to 7, right? Okay, so now we have a model that is registered to model registry, and now I'm going to show you how to deploy this model to both the dev or maybe the production environment that I'm talking about, right? So here, as I mentioned, let's say I'm going to register my model to deploy my model to dev and production, and I'm also going to show you how to generate a predictions out of it only if you stay till end of the session. So before that, you can able to see experiments here. So this is where all the experiments that I conducted. There are 3 experiments that I conducted. The first experiment is for pre-processing our data, and the second experiment is model training, and the third experiment is evaluating our actual ML model actually, right? Saying that, so now I will go to my model group. So this is what I'm talking about, model registry actually, right? So this is where I have my model in a model registry. And if I open that model group that I have here, you can able to see the first version of my ML model, right? So here you can see I have only one version of a model, the stage is none and the status is pending. So now I'm going to show you how to deploy this model to dev environment. So once I open that particular model, you can see it is actually waiting for manual approval, because that's a best practice. I don't want to deploy my model automatically. I want an approval. So here I'm going to hit this update status. I'm going to change my model status from pending to approve, and I'm going to say update status. That's it. As simple as that. You can able to see now I am deploying my model to dev environment. Okay. So now saying that, you can able to track the deployment process by going to something called endpoint. In few more minutes, we could able to see a status that is actually indicating the status of my deployment process actually. Okay, saying that, so now let's move on to the third important step, MLOps job opportunities. How does MLOps, once you have an MLOps skills on top of your resume, how does it helps you, right? How it can able to help you to leverage your career. Okay, saying that, so we will check out our deployment process in a few more minutes. Okay, so now we'll go back to our slide. So now, who should learn MLOps? Who should be part of this particular program, right? So who will be part of MLOps, machine learning operations? Who should learn? Anyone who is part of building ML projects. Are you a data scientist? Are you a data engineer or a data analyst? Or are you a research or maybe applied scientist? Are you a ML engineer? Or you are a DevOps engineer, someone who is working on top of ML, or you want to shift it to MLOps as a ML engineer? Are you an aspiring MLOps professional and enthusiast? Or are you someone who is looking for deploying your ML models? Are you someone who is learning Dockers, Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, or DBC, or Feast for feature store, or MLflow? You would be the right person. Or any individual who is interested in data and AI industry, you would be the person who should be part of this particular course, MLOps specialization program. So now let's have some statistics. So here is the MLOps salary range. I'm talking about the real data, what we got from Glassdoor and a six-figure.com. The US market is really, really huge, right? So which start from $94,520 per year, right? That's an average salary. I'm talking about an average salary means someone who has at least 2 to 3 years of experience, right? We will talk about the Indian market, and you could able to check out this data from sixfigure.com, and this data has been generated after verifying 12 profiles. An average salary for someone who has MLOps skills on their resume, it starts from 23 lakhs per annum, right? So yes, you might be data engineer, or you may be data scientist, or maybe ML engineer, right? After you upgrading your skills, this is the path where you can able to get started. And depends on your current experience, your salary ranges may go up, right? So 33% comes in 10 to 20 lakhs bucket. 42% of people comes under 20 to 30 lakhs bucket, and 25% of people comes under 30 to 40 lakhs bucket, right? So we understand that because this salary range makes sense, right? Even though if an organization has a successful ML model, that doesn't bring the success for them unless they have a solid MLOps pipeline, right? And we understand one of the hottest jobs in the world today is a data science, ML, or maybe ML engineering job, right? One of the recession-proof jobs that are available today, right? You might have seen the layoffs in very different organizations. Parallelly, you need to focus on another aspect. Parallelly, you might have seen these AI tools booming up each and every day. Considering starting from ChatGPT and what happened last week itself, you can see there's some more tools like that you could able to expect. The more AI tools like this, it may be the social tools, it may be the tools that your organizations are working on, might be expected in by end of, let's say, 2024, as we are talking. And there's no doubt about it. So the job, the range for data science or ML, or maybe ML ops, what you're talking about, started picking up the trend in 2019, and still this trends keeps on going up comparing with any other industry, right? So that's a reality. We'll talk about more, and now we will see whether our model has been deployed or not. So now you can able to see that in my endpoint, which says that it's creating. You can able to see it says creating. So my endpoint is actually getting deployed. Okay. So now we will wait for it to deploy. I will also show you how to make a predictions out of it. So now saying that, we will also proceed further. And now we will talk about another perspective, the amount of the speed of a transformation that's happening in the world, right? So everything is changing in this today's world, right? So everyone has a fear saying that whether ChatGPT can able to replace my job, or maybe some other tools that is going to come tomorrow might replace my job. Maybe not necessarily, right? But what we need to understand, going in a flow, catching that flow, and going fast, being a first person, right? So a good example would be this. Consider that between 2019 and 2009 and 2019, right? You might have never seen today a chopper and maybe the cameraman carrying a huge camera for shooting a movie, a reporter, it may be for a movie, right? So this industry completely taken care by drones, isn't it, right? Just in 10 years, right? But the AI is transforming even more faster. Okay, so now we will talk about our actual programs and when it is going to start. So as I mentioned, MLOps specialization course is going to start from April 15th. It's going to start from April 15th. It's going to be sessions on every weekends. So it's going to start from April 15th. Every weekend we're going to have a session. Okay, so this will be the time zone. Let's say if you're going to attend this particular program, let's say if you're joining from India, it's going to be from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Let's say you're joining from EST time zone, it's going to be 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Let's say you are from CET time zone, it's going to be 3:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We made it more comfortable, right? And how does the workflow looks like? Okay, this is how the things looks like. And our programs are mostly 99% of the time it's going to be live hands-on sessions. What do you mean by live hands-on? I mean, it's going to be live projects, the live labs. I mean, what are the projects that I'm building on my screen? I will be a trainer anyway. Okay, I will be a trainer for this program. So each and every project that we're going to build on this, let's say the course. So you will be building the project parallelly along with me in a screen. It's not something like, okay, I will be building a project, then you do watch the recording, then you build it by yourself. No, it won't work like that. So it will be the live hands-on sessions. As I mentioned, starting from 15th of April, we'll be having a live hands-on sessions on every weekend. Every Monday, you will be having an access to the recordings. And here comes the most valuable thing. Every Tuesday or maybe every Wednesday, this is going to be an optional debugging session, what we used to call. So this debugging session is something like, okay, let's say you might have missed something during a live session. You might be getting some bugs, or for some scenario, let's say you have missed the live sessions, right? Usually that happens. So 99.9% of people who attend these programs are working professionals. We always busy working, right? So we miss 1 or 2 live sessions. So you can able to bring back those things when you're attending a debugging session, because you have an access to recordings. You can join a debugging session where it will be one-on-one with a mentor. I mean, especially with me as a trainer, where I will be helping you to let's say fulfill what you have missed during a live sessions. Okay, saying that, what is this program is about? The major highlights of this program, we do cover the 3 major cloud platforms, that is AWS, Azure, GCP, and open source toolsets. Why does it matter? Because most of the machine learning happens on top of these 3 cloud platforms. And again, apart from these 3 cloud platforms, we might use open source tools, maybe Docker's, Kubernetes, MLflow, Kubeflow, it may be DVC and such other open source tools like Metaflow or maybe ZenML or other orchestration tools, right? So this particular program will make you specialist because it's an advanced level program. It lets you work with any organization. So maybe today you might be working in an organization where they're using AWS, and let's say tomorrow you want to work with an organization who is using Azure. You don't want to look for some other course. We do cover everything over here. That's the highlight. So this is the 60 hours program. It's a 60 hours program. There are 5+ hands-on labs. There are 5+ real-time industry projects. I mean, at least one project will be built on every cloud platform and one project will be built on every open source tools. We'll talk about that one in detail. Before we talking about the pricing structure, let's check it out, the awesome curriculum that we have. Okay, I'm going to share this curriculum as a download links. You can able to download that as a PDF in few more minutes. Okay, let's get started. Now we will discuss about the curriculum. Okay, is it interesting? Let's get started now. Okay. So this is the PDF I'm going to share. Okay, it's for you guys. Okay, let's get started with the actual curriculum. So we have totally 13 modules, 13 modules. Let's say our module 1 will be MLOps introduction. This is where we're going to talk about all the different aspects of what is really MLOps, challenges, the components, and how does it related with DevOps? How does it related with AI ops or model ops or maybe GitOps, what we talk about. And talking about the CI/CD production case studies, I mean, talking about various different organizations, how do they use AWS, how did they use Azure, how did they use GCP, or how did they use open source tools to build pipelines. So this gets you the more clarity on how what's happening in a real time. Then comes introduction to ML and MLOps stages. This is where we're going to talk about the various different versionings, various different testing principles, various different CI/CD tools, reproducibility, deployment, and monitoring. Then comes MLOps architecture. This is where we're going to talk about architectures by using open source. Let's say if you're an organization that you want to use completely open source. Kubeflow, talking about MLflow, talking about Metaflow, talking about Kedro, ZenML, MLrun, RCML. Or if you're an organization want to use AWS, how does an architecture looks like when you're using AWS or GCP or Azure, right? So then comes introduction to Git, because as part of a source version control, Git plays very important role. Where if you can able to see the place where I mentioned hands-on, that means where we're going to do some projects, hands-on labs over there. We're going to cover end-to-end on top of Git, what is remote repository, how to commit, how to push, how to pull, how to merge, how to create a branches and other things. Then comes CI/CD chapter, module 4. Here we're going to cover all the DevOps tools on top of various different cloud platforms. I mean, it doesn't make sense without understanding the DevOps tools, understanding CI/CD tools, right, to proceed with MLOps. Here we do cover DevOps on every cloud platform on top of Azure, on top of AWS, and there is a project that has been planned on every different cloud platform. And GCP, project on GCP, and understanding Azure DevOps, building a project on Azure DevOps. And then comes Docker and Kubernetes, right? So maybe you want to containerize your models, you want to deploy on top of Docker container. Maybe you want to deploy your ML model on top of Kubernetes cluster. We're going to get started with Docker and Kubernetes from scratch, from basic. And then here we're going to show you how to deploy your ML model to Docker container, or how to deploy your ML model to Kubernetes cluster. Then comes module number 6, Kubernetes deployment strategies on top of cloud platform. How do we deploy our ML models on Kubernetes clusters on top of various different clouds? Maybe Amazon, for example, using EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. Module number 7, introduction to model management tools. So this is where we're going to talk about the various open source based model management tools for data versioning, code versioning, experiment tracking, for model registry and model monitoring. For example, MLflow, which is very famous tool set, the open source tool set that is available. We're going to show you how to deploy the MLflow stack, and after deploying a stack, how do we build, try and deploy your ML models through Kubeflow. Then comes talking about DVC, data version control, using hands-on on top of DVC to version your data on top of a cloud. Then comes module number 8, feature store, understanding what is exactly feature store, what are the different feature stores that are available in the market. For example, it can be SageMaker feature store, Vertex AI feature store, or maybe Databricks, or Tecton, or a Feast, which is open source, or HubSpot feature store. And building a project on top of Feast, where we're going to learn how to build online or offline feature store. Then comes module number 9, Cloud ML Service 101. So this is where we're going to learn about all the different studios that are available on top of a cloud. For example, Amazon SageMaker Studio, where we're going to build end-to-end MLOps pipeline on top of AWS SageMaker, where automated model training building process will be involved. And then comes using GCP Vertex AI. We do cover Vertex AI and building end-to-end project on top of Vertex AI, building pipelines on top of it. Then comes Azure MLOps, where we're going to learn how to build end-to-end MLOps version 2 architecture on top of Azure Machine Learning Studios. Then comes Kubeflow, obviously, as I mentioned, maybe you're an organization want to use Kubeflow to build open source pipelines, and where we're going to show you how to deploy a Kubeflow and how to create a pipelines on top of a Kubeflow. Then comes module number 11, model monitoring. This is where we're going to learn about various different SDKs, which is provided by various different cloud platforms in order to monitor your ML model. And we're going to build a project on top of the cloud platforms. Then comes introduction to auto ML tools. What are the various different auto ML tools that are available in the market, how you can able to use it as a subscription based platform, and a demo has been planned on top of it. Then comes the final module, that is post deployment challenges. What are the challenges that we usually face after deploying your ML model? Maybe the ML related challenges or software engineering related challenges, and also using open source tool sets like Evidently AI in order to monitor your ML model. So this is the huge curriculum that we're going to cover, and this will be the skills that we're going to master, starting from DevOps, Git, AWS, all the DevOps tools, GCP, all the DevOps tools on GCP, open source tools like Kubernetes, MLflow, DVC, Git, Evidently AI, and other things. And these are the tools that we're going to master. You can also check it out, the PDF that I'm going to share in a few minutes. Okay, so saying that, now we will discuss about what is the pricing structure that we are offering and how you can able to register for this particular program. Okay, so let's get started. So we made it more feasible for the participants here. So we don't have one price structure, we have 3 different price structures. I mean, we have 3 different price structures. I mean, these 3 different price structures will help you to get the most out of this particular program. Okay, so we don't want to feed something that is not necessary. You can able to pick what exactly you need. So each and every price plan comes with different opportunities. The actual course fee for this particular program starts with 39,999. I mean 39,999. This is our advanced plus plan, and then we have advanced plan which just starts with 34,999. So then we have our basic plan starts with 32,999. Okay, you might be having a question, why there is a three different plans? What's the difference here, right? You might be having a question. Definitely yes. Let me just explain how does this work. Okay, so here we have a basic plan, advanced plan, or maybe advanced plus plan. It doesn't matter whatever the plan that you pick. There is an equal opportunity that is provided for the participants who are going to pick whatever the plan that you have here. So maybe, like, for example, every participant who picks whatever the plan, they can attend live training, and every participant, they get access to the recordings, and every participants get an access to debugging sessions, okay, and other free resources like ebooks, webinars, job updates, and interview questions, and community support. Then what's the difference? What's the difference between advanced or maybe advanced plus plan? So when you pick advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, you get some premium features for you. So what do you mean by advanced plan? So for example, it comes with resume preparation. So what is this resume preparation? So let's say once you complete this program, so we'll be asking you to draft your resume, and we'll be helping you to, let's say, each and every time, let's say in the process of you applying for an interviews, based on a feedback that you're going to give us in the process of what goes in an interview, we're going to help you to optimize this resume to always help you to fix the missing part. Then comes technical job support, the free technical job support for 6 months. Let's say you're choosing an advanced plan, you get 6 months free technical job support. So what do you mean by free technical job support? How you can able to use it? So consider that once completing this program, so maybe you work in an organization where they're asking you to build a sample pipeline, maybe on open source tool set or maybe cloud source tool set. Obviously, after completing this program, you have an expertise level skill set to do that. But consider that from Citron Technologies, we'll be offering a virtual mentor. We'll be supporting you, guiding you, providing documentations, helping you fix the bugs, consulting you, right, and other aspects, right? Otherwise, let's say once completing this program, you're building your own projects, you want to need some assistance, you can able to use this technical job support. As part of technical job support, obviously we cannot build a project behalf of you, we cannot write a code behalf of you, but apart from that, yeah, we can help you to fix the bugs, for example. And the most important feature what every working professionals would enjoy is this bonus reattendance opportunity. Sign up once, attend twice. I mean, you get 2 opportunities to take this program. You can attend twice. Let's say you're registering for a current batch, which is going to start from 15th of April. Let's say you're registering for the current batch, which is going to start from 15th of April, right? So we have a current batch starting from 15th of April. Not only you can attend the 15th batch, after completing 15th, I mean, this batch, current batch, you can retake this course once again, completely for free in next batch. Consider that we might conduct our next batch somewhere around June or July. You can retake this course completely for free. So why do you do that? There are a couple of opportunities. One is maybe, let's say, each and every batch, we might optimize our curriculum. There might be some changes. Maybe you need revision, or maybe you need to learn some new stuff. Yes, you can rejoin. Consider that you might have missed something in a live session, you want to retake it again in the next batch. Yes, you can do. That's a feature. When it comes to advanced plus plan, again, you get resume preparation, and instead of you getting 6 months of job support, you get 1 year of job support, a premium job support. Then comes bonus reattendance opportunity is being part of it. And the most interesting part would be instant access feature. What do you mean by instant access feature? Let's say you're registering for advanced plus plan today, you can able to get started with our program right now. I mean, how it works, you'll get immediate access to our previous batch that we just completed last March. You get the previous batch recordings to get started. Once 15th April comes into the picture, you can join live sessions again. So that's the instant access. Okay, saying that if you want to look for the prices in USD, let's say our advanced plus plan starts with $599, and our advanced plan starts with just $499, and our basic plan starts with $449 only. And usually, so working professionals choose either advanced or maybe advanced plus plan. It doesn't matter. Just check out the feature that you have, and you can able to register accordingly. And as I mentioned, it won't be good enough if we don't have some surprises here, as I mentioned, right? So the bulk discounts that you can able to get as part of this program. And again, The worst part is we have just 6 seats left. That's it, as simple as that, because it's really going fast and we have just 6 seats left. And this is the offer that we are offering. We have only 6 seats left, and with this offer is going to last till 7th of April. There are 2 discounts that we are offering, from 5% to maximum 10% discount. You can able to use a coupon code that is MLOps 05 PSI to get 5% discount on basic plan, or maybe 5% discount on advanced plan, or maximum of 10% discount on top of advanced plus plan by using MLOps 10 PSI. Otherwise, let's say if you're not interested to go with the discounted offers, here we go. We have a no-cost EMI offer through your credit cards. You can able to pick the no-cost EMI for basic 3 months, advanced 6 months, and advanced plus 6 months. So what do you mean by the no-cost EMI? I hope you understand EMI. EMI is basically, let's say you take 6 months tenure or 3 months tenure. Let's say you split the price and you pay additional interest, right? So for example, let's say a course that is costing 10,000 rupees, you might pay somewhere around 14,000 rupees additional interest along with that, right? So when you pick no cost EMI, you don't pay any additional interest. The interest rates are handled by Citron Technologies. All you do, let's say a course that is costing 30,000 rupees, let's say you split this price 10,000, 10,000, 10,000 for the first 3 months. You'll be splitting that and paying exactly for the next 3 months. Okay, the interest will be handled by us. Okay, that's the thing. So if you're choosing an advanced plan, you get maximum of 6 months tenure, and advanced plus you get 6 months tenure. Okay, saying that, why do you think Citron Technologies is the right persons to teach this particular program? Considering that this is not the first batch that we are conducting, definitely not. We have a lot of batches that we have conducted previously on top of MLOps, and especially we are Citron Technologies. We are based out of Bangalore, and anything that you want to talk about in terms of ML on top of AWS, Azure, or GCP, or maybe MLOps, we are the best peoples. We've been supported and incubated through PhD steps, supported by Department of Science and Technology, and we've been represented ourselves in various different international stages, the couple of awards, and been part of AWS Activate program. And you can check our the community, the students' feedback, right? The glimpse of the happy students' feedback after completing our programs, right? After completing our MLOps programs, right? How do they rate us in terms of, let's say, the way we teach? How does a hands-on looks like, the explanations, solving doubts, debugging, and other aspects. You can check all these details, all these ratings in the PDF that I'm going to share maybe in few minutes. Okay, saying that, so now let's get back. So now I'm going to show you how I'm going to give you a couple of links where you can able to download the PDF that I shared right now, right? This PDF, right? So I'm going to share your links right now in the chat window. After that, stay connected. I'm going to also show you how to generate a demo from the model that we are deploying. Here we go. Here are the details. Okay, as we promised, the first link is the registration link, where you can go to this particular link and you can able to register for this program. Let me just quickly show you. Once you click on this first link, you'll be redirected to a platform called TownScript. This is a registration platform, and here you can able to gain the same informations. I mean, you can able to check out the poster, you can able to check out the curriculum that we are covering. So every informations that you can able to find it over here itself. And so once you hit book now, you can able to check the number of seats that is available. And if you are from India, let's say if you want to pick basic or advanced plus plan, you can able to pick. Otherwise, let's say if you're from outside India, so you can pick the price in dollars. And there we go, we have another offer. Okay, here we go, the another offer that we have. Let's say if you're going to pick 2 seats, let's say if you're booking along with your colleague, you get direct 10% discount on basic plan itself. You get 10% discount, let's say if you're booking along with your friends. Okay, so saying this, so now I have shared the links, and the first link is for registration and the second link is for downloading a curriculum. By clicking on a second link, you can able to download the curriculum, and the third link is where you can able to download the free ebooks that I promised. And here is our contact number. Please feel free to reach out our contact number if you have any questions. I'm here to help. Saying that, so now we will get back to our model deployment process. Okay, before we talking about the course, and we are talking about, okay, so the deployment process of my ML model. And here we go. Now we are in endpoint. Just below endpoint, we can able to say our endpoint, which says demo April staging, because this is my dev environment, which is called staging, which is in service. That means it's been deployed. So stay connected. I'm going to open the session for Q&A. You can talk to me. We can talk and discuss a lot. I'm going to open a Q&A session in a few more minutes. Okay. Okay. Let me just go to my model that has been deployed. And this is my name of my model, that is demo April staging. And this is the REST API that our developers can able to use in order to create a client applications. I mean, to create Android apps or web apps, how our customers can able to invoke our model. So now I'm going to show you how to quickly generate a predictions out of it. Okay, here we have a simple Jupyter notebook that I'm going to use in order to invoke my model. I have my model deployed in a name of, let's say, demo April staging. So I'm going to use this particular script. All I'm going to do, change this particular endpoint name to my endpoint name, that is demo April staging. So this endpoint is actually designed to invoke the model that is deployed to dev and to predict. And here I pass my payload. This is my input data and where I'm going to generate age of that particular uploading. Let's run it. Here we go. Yes, you can see now I have invoked my model with the data that I have, which says abalone test single dot test. And where we go here, we have the age of an abalone. My model says the age of an abalone is 9.81. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now I have showed you how to deploy my model to dev, and I have also showed you how to generate predictions. So now I'm going to show you how to deploy my model to production environment. Okay, in order to deploy your model to production environment, you cannot do it on top of a studio. For that reason, we're going to use AWS developer tools. I mean, AWS DevOps environment. This is where we're going to approve our model to be deployed to a production ready environment. Here, you can able to see I have a pipeline. Let me just go to my pipelines. Here you could able to see I have a couple of pipelines, and you can able to see there's a one pipeline which says in progress. If I go to that pipeline which is in progress, you could able to see the exact pipeline that I built. Here you can able to see our source, basically, which is representing the source code repository that we discussed in our slide. And then we have a build step, then we have a deployment staging. So as part of a deployment, it has not yet deployed. You can able to see it's pending. Basically, it is waiting for my approval. So here I can simply click review. And here, if I want to make some commands, I can make it. And I can simply say approve. That's it. So now we could able to see that our model is getting deployed to production ready environment. You can able to track this on your studio itself after a few seconds. Now, if I go back to my studio, if I go back to my endpoints, maybe in few minutes, you should able to see, yes, here we go. Here we go. You can able to see demo April prod, which says production, it's getting deployed. Saying that, it's going to take again a minute to deploy. Now I'm going to open a session for Q&A. If you have any questions, you can able to reach out me in two ways. You can able to you can able to unmute your mics. You can talk to me. Otherwise, please do mention your queries in your chat window. Both the ways. If you're using your mic, please mention your name and what you do, and then you can able to ask your question. Go ahead, please. Yep.
Yeah, so, can you hear me though?
Hello.
So,
Hi. Yeah. May I know your name?
yeah, my name is Abdullah, and
Yeah. Go
I'm a
ahead. Ask
fresh
your question.
graduate. My question is regarding Dockers. So we're gonna go over Dockers, and are we going to go over CI/CD,
Yes. Definitely. Yes.
continuous integration, continuous? Okay.
Yep. Yes. So CI/CD will be covered on all these three cloud platforms. As I mentioned, it may be AWS, Azure, or GCP. Yes. Yes, folks. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. I'm here to help. mention your questions. So I have shared the link in a chat window. The first link is for registration. The second link is for the curriculum, and the third link where you can able to download free ebooks. And below is my contact information, so you can able to contact me. Go ahead, mention your questions
Hi,
if you
sir.
have in a chat window. Hi, may I know your name?
Yeah, I'm Shubho Bhattacharya.
Hi,
Just
Shibu.
want
Yes,
to
go
know
ahead.
that, yeah. I'm working on DevOps actually, but I have no good knowledge on machine learning. But
Oh, that's great.
so if I go through that course, then I have the get the opportunity to learn the ML actually,
Okay,
because
that's a good
this is
question.
completely,
Yeah, got
yeah,
it. Got it. Yeah, got it. I
yeah,
understand. So usually,
yes, sir.
like we'll be having these questions from DevOps peoples itself. Okay, so here we understand. So when we talk about MLOps, so in the perspective of who will be part of MLOps, what we discussed, right? There are various different stakeholders who are part of it. There are data scientists, there are data engineers, there are ML engineers, there are DevOps peoples. Otherwise, we call them as ML engineer. Okay, let's say as a DevOps professional, you right. So let's say you will be transforming into ML engineer, right? So here
Yes,
you
yes,
don't want to be a data scientist. You're not going to become a data scientist. Okay. So let's say if you're interested in data science, if you want to become a data scientist, that's a different matter. That's I'm not talking about that. But if your question is, let's say I'm a DevOps professional, let's say I want to transform into ML, where I can be suited here, where I can be placed here, right? Yes, you will be ML engineer. You won't be a data scientist. You won't be a data engineer. So because our data engineers jobs are pretty much different, they'll be working on top of data. Our data scientists purely working on top of building an ML model, picking up an algorithm, hyper tuning it, a lot of different stuff. Where an ML engineer, you will be using a traditional DevOps tools, the CI/CDs and source version control. Along with that, what are the other tools that we are talking about, or what are the tools that we're going to learn in this particular program? So basically, you'll be responsible for taking an ML model that is developed by a data scientist and deploying it into the production-ready environment, handling CI/CD pipelines, writing test scenarios, working with model registries, working with model monitoring tools, and other aspects. So you don't need to have, let's say, data science expertise here. But anyway, as part of this program, because anyway, let's say if you're an ML engineer, you need to be aware about what is exactly our data scientists and data engineers are doing, right? So we need to get that awareness. That part we're going to be talking. So we will be building an ML models here. We will be doing a data engineering here. And here you will be having your own specific part. As an ML engineer, you have your own responsibilities. At the end of the day, MLOps is all about the collaboration and communication between various different teams. So it's really important to focus what's exactly your stake in this particular pipeline building process. Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, I hope that helped you. Yeah. Okay, so we're getting couple of questions in the chat window. Can we are master in DevOps to work on MLOps? Okay, not necessary, because you don't need to have DevOps expertise to get started with MLOps. For example, any software professional can become an ML engineer here, because considering our curriculum, because you can see we are covering DevOps on not just one single cloud platform. We do cover DevOps on all the different cloud platforms, right? Because that's a basic thing. Before we getting started with the MLOps pipeline building process, if you check our curriculum, you can able to see we do cover DevOps and projects on all the different cloud platforms to get a better idea first how CI/CD tools work, how code repositories work, how code build works, and other such tools. Yeah. Okay, then we have another question. Please feel free to unmute your mic and then you can talk to me. Okay, so we have a good question. Will be learning whether we will be learning ETL tools, for example, Kafka or maybe such other tools. No, not exactly. We will be not learning ETL tools here, because this is not data engineering course. So Ibrahim asked this question. So we are not going to learn data science here. We are not going to learn Python programming here. We are not going to learn data engineering here, because it's purely for MLOps only. So ETL basically it comes extract, transform, and load. It's a process that comes, let's say, in the process of building data engineering pipelines. So we won't be covering that.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, go
Like,
ahead.
one who doesn't have knowledge of like operating systems, like most of the time we use Ubuntu, right? And suppose one who
Yes.
doesn't have like deeper knowledge of Ubuntu systems, then can he start with this course and can he like work in the MLOps or like what? Can you please explain on
Got it.
this?
Yeah. Can you, if you don't mind, if you know, may I know your name and what you do?
Ganesh. My name is Ganesh.
What do you do? I mean, so are you a
Yeah,
student, working
I just
professional? What do you
completed
do?
my like PG. Yes, I just completed my post graduation.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so I mean, so when you're talking about Ubuntu, right? So Linux-based operating systems, right? So I mean, that's not the, let's say, the brick which is stopping you to register. No, because most of the time, let's say, because let's say you need to understand where you be suited. Because you mentioned you're completed a PG, but PG in what? What's your expertise here? Are you a data engineer? Are you a data scientist? Are you going to become ML engineer? That matters here. So Linux skills, that's not going to be the biggest problem, because there is a more other things that we're going to focus here, using different varieties of tools. For example, you don't need to have a Linux based knowledge. Let's say if I want to use tools on top of AWS, for example, using such tools like AWS Code Commit, or maybe like AWS SageMaker, or maybe let's say Azure DevOps tools, or maybe like Vertex AI tools, or maybe let's say when it comes to other tools like DVC, right? So basically, like here, there are a lot of command line based tools that we're going to use. A minimum Linux knowledge would be fair enough to get started. And again, you don't need to have, okay, you need to have knowledge of a kernel level Linux. No, not required. Yeah.
But like we deploy like models on Ubuntu or OS only, right? So the things which we have to write down in like pipeline files or something like that. So
Yes.
that
So let's
requires.
say we don't, like, let's say when it comes to MLOps, we don't want to run, let's say if you want to deploy your ML model, you don't want to go for your Ubuntu server to run some commands to deploy your ML model. So basically, let's say either it will happen through a pipeline. So basically it might happen through a simple ML files, right? So for example, right? So Linux, so we won't be like, let's say you don't want to do this manual process of using your Linux commands to deploy your ML model. It don't work like that. Let's say as part of your, let's say if we are using SageMaker pipelines or Azure pipelines, once the pipeline is built, the deployment happens automatically. So maybe you might have manual approval process. Maybe we might have automated approval process. You don't run this command for every time you want to deploy this model. That's the beauty of pipelines. It's all about the automation that we're building.
Okay, and so one who is completing this course can means work as a DevOps engineer too.
So this is for purely on MLOps, but we do cover DevOps here. But we don't teach you how to deploy, let's say, software applications. No, that's not the focus here. It's purely for MLOps, and where you need some DevOps skill set as a backend for you, right? Backup for you, right? This is not
Mhm.
DevOps course, but we do teach
Okay,
DevOps.
okay. Thanks much, sir.
You're welcome. And we have someone who has the questions. Do you teach to deploy your ML models on microcontrollers like STM32 or ESP32? So I got you where you're talking about. So he is asking in the perspective of, do you teach your deploying your ML models on edge devices, right? So again, that's not, so yes, we're going to talk about a couple of tools here. Like for example, AWS has something called AWS SageMaker Neo along with Greengrass. So where we're going to talk about and discuss more about, let's say, edge deployment process. Maybe you want to deploy it on top of a cloud server, maybe on Raspberry Pis, or maybe other things. But we won't be teaching an IoT here. That's not the focus. Okay, Rolex mentioned the discount coupons that been issued is not working. Let me just quickly check on that. Okay, so okay, let's say if you have gone to a registration platform Rolex, let me just check the coupons that I provided. So let's say all you need to do here, you can see apply coupon. Here you can say MLOps, for example, 10 PSI, right? So that is for advanced plan. So let's say once you apply, you can able to see here 10% discount has been applied for both advanced plus plans. And let's say if you're looking forward to go for basic or maybe let's say advanced plan. So you need to use MLOps MLOps 05 PSI, that is this one. And if you hit apply, you should able to see here the 5% discount would be applied for both basic, advanced, and for international participants basic, advanced. So maybe I will share the coupon code once again in the chat window. If you need, you can able to just copy paste that and you can able to use it. So MLOps 05 for basic and advanced, and you can use MLOps 10 for advanced plus. Okay, here we go. So let me know if you guys have any other questions. I'm going to spare a few more minutes, obviously. Go ahead and ask your question, okay? As I mentioned, we have 3 different plans. One is advanced, plus, advanced, and basic. And let's say if you're looking for a premium support along with, let's say, where you get resume preparation, 6 months of job support, and bonus reattendance opportunity, go for advanced plan. Or if you're looking for advanced plus, where you get 1 year of job support, bonus reattendance, and you get instant access to the complete recordings of a previous batch in next 24 hours. Okay. So, and again, there is no exception. What you learn, every participant get equal opportunity in attending live sessions, accessing recordings, debugging sessions, accessing other free resources. So we do provide, as part of free resources, job updates. That means we've been connected with a lot of corporates and MNCs, and we have our own team. They do research and get the right opportunity from the market, and we make sure it reaches your plate. Okay, so if you're looking forward for the prices in USD, this is how it looks. Okay, so now let me just check the questions. Dr. Ahmed, so what about authentication, validation, encryption, traffic monitoring, audit in this course? Perfect. Yes, so we will be talking about let's say the security perspective of your ML models. What I'm talking about, the post deployment challenges, Mr. Ahmed. For example, if I go back to my curriculum, so this is where we're going to talk about all the post deployment challenges. I mean, what are the software engineering related challenges? The most of the stuff that we talked about, authentication, validation, traffic monitoring, so everything comes under post deployment challenges on software engineering. So talking about load balancing, how do you deploy your ML model? Do you deploy it to one endpoint and multiple machines, or one single machine? How it works? What is the good practice? Those things will be definitely talked in the post deployment challenges. Yes. So now ask the question, what are the prerequisites? The prerequisites are this, as I mentioned, if you are somewhere, if you're part of, let's say, building an ML model, right? So if you're part of building ML model, so let's say if you are, let's say, are you a data scientist? Are you a data engineers, researcher, applied scientist, ML engineer? Are you a DevOps professional, aspiring MLOps professional? Are you someone who's looking for learning how to deploy your models? Are you looking for learning Docker, Kubernetes, AWS, Azure, GCP, DVC, Feast, or MLflow for MLOps use cases? Are you an individual who is interested in data or AI industry? You are the best person to get started with. Okay, so as part of, if you're looking forward for the programming skills, let's say if you are a data engineer or a data scientist, definitely I will say, okay, you need an expertise level knowledge on programming. But let's say if you are a DevOps professional, so maybe not. So as a DevOps professional, we write a lot of test cases by using Python or maybe other scripts, but you don't need to have let's say there's such an expertise skills what data engineer or data scientist have, understanding algorithms and other stuff maybe DevOps person doesn't need, right? Understanding Python, basic skills on Python would be more than enough. Thank you. So I'm going to spare a few more minutes. Please let me know how many, so if you guys have any other questions, I'm here to help. Yeah,
Hi,
so
Chef.
once again, let links once again. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please mention your question.
So I'm James. I have 2 years of experience as a data scientist. So, I
Awesome,
have a
great.
couple of questions.
Go ahead, ask a couple of questions. I'm here to help.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
do you cover, shell scripts or anything like that? Because, I'm talking about from an Azure point of view. If you want to develop some DevOps pipeline and all, you need exposure to shell scripting, right?
So I mean, so yes, we're going to use, especially we're going to use ML files a couple of times, and there are two processes here. For example, basically the major focus will be on this. Let's say, for example, let's say you want to build your Docker images. How does you write the script, ML script, for example, right? It may be, let's say, using ML files on top of Azure DevOps. How do you use ML files to build this pipelines? Those things will be done. And let's say the shell scripting process that you're talking about. Let's say, for example, you might be pointing to something like this. Let's say, what if I use Terraform scripting process? Let's say, what if I mention, okay, I want to deploy, let's say, some kind of a virtual machine. I want to deploy create some kind of a storage platform. Yes, you can able to write all this scripts in a Terraform, and you can able to deploy this through your CLIs. Yes, in that perspective. So maybe that is considering that it's not going to be priority, let's say, because mostly what happens when it comes to MLOps, most of our pipelines will be built through ML files, right? So ML files, maybe AWS or Azure, or maybe even a GCP, right? So it maybe MLs are JSON files basically. Yes, but we do use let's say Terraform and other shell scripting files, but the focus is not okay teaching Terraform from a scratch. No, that is not the focus. But yes, we will be going through Terraform codes and explaining how the basic structure works and all this stuff. But let's say that's not the focus of using Terraform. Completely getting started with the Terraform or other shell scripting tools here. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And the other thing is, it's you already said it's a 7-week course, right? Maybe 40 sessions we have. And I can see a lot of tools that you're covering. So I'm little concerned how in depth you're going to cover all those tools in the limited
That's a good question. Okay. Okay, good question. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so let me just answer this question. Okay, so saying that, okay, for example, let's say the lot of tools that we talked about, it will be covered in depth. For example, if I go to my DevOps itself, let's say we'll go from DevOps. It's not just okay understanding what is exactly Azure pipelines, or maybe understanding what is exactly AWS code pipelines, or maybe GCP DevOps tools. We're going to build end-to-end projects on top of it. So for example, understanding how all these tools work, and combination of all these tools, how can we deploy simple DevOps application to understand how do our code commit works, how do our repositories react, right? So for example, whenever the code change happens, our code pipelines could able to recognize that, automatically build application, deploy it, right? Something like that. So same process would be followed on GCP. The same process would be followed on, let's say, on Azure. And when it comes to Kubernetes and Dockers, we'll be starting from scratch, understanding how to build the Docker image. Basically, let's say you have an ML model, how do you containerize it? And once you containerize it, how do you deploy your ML models on container services? For example, maybe you want to deploy it on your premises, maybe you want to deploy it on cloud platforms. We're going to show that. So then when it comes to Kubeflow, we're going to get started with Kubeflow end to end. And again, we're going to deploy Kubeflow cluster, maybe on your on-premises, maybe on top of a cloud platform. And the same ML model that we have built, let's say that we have built for a Docker part, we're going to take that model, we're going to deploy it on top of a Kubernetes cluster. We're going to understand how the difference works. What is this node, and what is this, I mean, basically worker nodes and clusters, basically what it does, right? And when it comes to Kubernetes deployment strategy, as I mentioned, step one, we're going to deploy it on premises, and step two, we're going to take that ML model that is containerized, and we're going to deploy it on top of a cloud-based clusters, basically, right? So because there are a lot of different perspectives that comes to the picture, exposing an endpoint, creating the load balancer, a lot of things that we're going to discuss. Then comes to model management tools. Here, MLflow, we're going to dive deep. I'm going to show you how to deploy ML stack and how to build, try and deploy your ML models through MLflow using experimentation, picking up models from model registry and those stuff, and doing hands-on on top of DVC, using DVC to version a data, using some kind of a cloud platforms to version our data, maybe S3 or maybe other different storage platforms that is available. Then comes feature store, understanding what is exactly feature store, what kind of organizations they need to use feature store, for example, because feature store is not necessary for every organization. It depends on the structure. For example, there is something called MLOps maturity levels. That's what exactly we're going to discuss in our let's say in our first initial 2 modules. So where we will talk about the MLOps maturity models. So basically, how does organization progresses from level 0 to level 4, right? So what does an organization need when they are in level 1? What do they need in level 2? So those things, right? And then comes yeah. So then comes, let's say, once we're done with Docker and Kubernetes and model management tools. So here, when it comes to feature store, we're going to use how to use Feast, which is very famous open source feature store, to build online and offline feature store, right? Literally, you're going to build it right on top of your on-premises, I mean, on top of your computer, or maybe on top of a cloud platform. Then comes Cloud ML Services 101. So here we're going to understand in deep what is SageMaker Studio, how to build end-to-end pipelines on top of it. So the same project, you can able to see what I demonstrated here. We will be building it, but the more steps. So usually we will be spending at least 1 week per cloud. Right? So let's say it might take, just to cover SageMaker, it take a week, 1 weekend, right? That's the amount of time that you're going to spend. So 75% of the time you'll be busy doing hands-on in this particular program. Again, for GCP, we will be showing how to use Vertex AI end-to-end, how to build this pipelines, right? And then comes Azure MLOps, especially we're going to use Azure MLOps version 2, which is latestly released, which is being highlighted by every organization. We're going to show you how to build this MLOps version 2 architecture, which is really robust. And then comes Kubeflow, right? So maybe not every organization want to use AWS SageMaker pipelines or maybe Azure. They want to use their own pipeline building tools like Kubeflow. So here we're going to deploy Kubeflow stack on top of Kubernetes cluster, and then I'm going to show you how to use Kubeflow UI, or maybe along with this YAML files that I'm talking about, how to use this YAML files basically to create this end-to-end pipeline, right? How does data preparation, model training, how do we extract the results, those stuff. Then comes model monitoring tool. Here we're going to discuss about different SDKs that is available on every different cloud platform, and hands-on on the cloud platform basically to monitor your ML model. And then comes at least one demo will be provided on at least one AutoML tool. How do we use that? Then comes module 13. This is where we're going to talk about the post-deployment challenges, and again using open source tools like Evidently AI. So basically it's an open source tool set that you can able to use it to monitor your ML model, just monitoring the data quality, understanding data drift, and other concept drift and other opportunities would be done by post-deployment challenges. And again, considering that the way we have structured our program, so let's say live sessions, let's say might be not enough for every people. That's why we came up with this structure. Every weekend you'll be having a live session. Every Monday you'll be receiving the recordings. Every Tuesday or Wednesday you'll be attending a debugging session. This is going to be optional. And again, it doesn't mean that if you're not available on Tuesday or Wednesday, you cannot ask questions or something. Throughout this entire program, as a trainer, I will be available for you to support. In WhatsApp continuously, right? So that's how the things work. Yeah. So this is how the structure work, and so we ensure that you spend more time here, because we should never say it's a 60 hours, because 60 hours live sessions, but apart from that we might spend more time in a debugging itself. There's a more time, and along with that, let's say you're opting for when you're opting for, let's say, advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, you get more time that you can able to spend with us. You can talk a lot as part of a technical job support. Maybe after completing a course you want to build, because we have a participant right now, so his goal is, okay, I want to complete my live sessions. Then he asks, Sharad, do you going to support me when I'm building my own projects on top of GCP, Azure, or DevOps? Yes, definitely, yes, because he's taken advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, so you get this technical job support. We do support you in that perspective. So that's how the things work. So the ultimate goal is to spend more time, not just live sessions, not just a 60 hours, is more time that is spent in debugging session, and post you're done with the course, the job support also comes in the picture. Yeah. Saying that, please let me know if you guys have any other questions. I'm here to help. Let me just check if there is any other questions in the chat window. So I have shared the links in the chat window. I'm going to share the link once again in the chat window. Okay, let me repeat the offer once again that we have. So this offer, as I mentioned, it's going to last till 7th of April, because we have very few seats, just 6 seats that we have. You can able to opt for offer number 1 or maybe offer number 2, right? Either you can get, let's say, a 5% discount either on basic or advanced plan, or maximum of 10% discount on advanced plus plan by using those coupon codes. Otherwise, you can opt for the no cost EMI option, where you can get 3 months tenure for basic plan, 6 months tenure for advanced, and 6 months for advanced plus plan through your credit cards. Okay, don't miss this offer. And once 7th of April comes to picture, we never know like the seats will be lost or not. Please let me know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to reach out to me through the number that I shared in the chat window. I'm going to share you a link once again in the chat window. So these are the link. The first link is for registration. The second link is for the downloading curriculum. The third link is for downloading the free ebooks, and below is my contact number along with the organization contact number. You can reach out to me with the first number if you want to talk to me. Yes, I'm going to share the link in a chat window once again. I'm going to spare 1 more minute if you guys have any more questions.
Yes, Sharad, one more question from my end. So James here. So, when you go through your curriculum, you say about the pipelines, right? So is it DevOps pipeline, or is it the pipeline from the machine learning studio itself?
Yeah, before that, may I know your name and what you do? Sorry, I didn't get it. Before you mentioned. Can you please
So
mention once again?
I'm James. I just asked you a couple of questions before as well.
Okay, Jay. Okay, got it. So pipelines mean, so it's both. So we're going to show you how, because the step number one, because when I'm talking about Jay, so like, because when I'm talking about pipelines, it's the priority. What is mentioning the MLOps pipelines, but when it comes to MLOps, the traditional DevOps tools are part of it. I mean, traditional CI/CD tools, traditional code repositories. I mean, GitHub. It may be AWS code commit. Those are already part of MLOps, but the reason is MLOps is not just depending on the existing CI/CD tools or maybe code repositories. There is more needed. That's what I'm talking about: model registries, feature stores, data version control, and other things, right? So yes, in order to get started with the pipeline building process, we need to understand how to build DevOps pipelines first. As I mentioned in the curriculum, yes, we're going to build DevOps pipelines. You can see project on AWS DevOps pipelines to build the software package and deploy it on top of your dev environment, or maybe production environment will be shown. And similarly, when it comes to the cloud 101 services, you can see the same representation. So you might have seen that the demo that I provided, I showed you the pipeline that I built, and I showed you how to deploy your ML model to dev environment and to production environment, right? The same workflow would be followed when it comes to, let's say, GCP, or maybe let's say when it comes to Azure, basically. So the pipelines representing the workflow that we're going to build for automation. That's what it means.
Okay,
that's awesome. Thanks for asking the question. I'm going to spare 1 more minute. Looks like you guys have more questions. I'm going to spare 1 more minute. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask me. Yeah, I'm going to spare 1 more minute. As I mentioned, we're going to start from April 15th, every Saturday and Sunday, and this is the workflow. And let's say if you want to get started today, don't want to wait for the next 10 or 15 days, get registered for advanced plus plan. You get instant access to our course. In next 24 hours, you can get started with the recordings, and you can join to live sessions fresh and 15. Okay. Saying that, okay, that's awesome. Thanks for spending your valuable time. I hope today you have enjoyed something about, you have learned something really new about what is exactly MLOps and what it takes to build successful ML model, right? And so don't miss our specialization program. So we have very limited seats. I mean, just 6. That's it. So complete your registration fast. If you have any concerns, please feel free to reach me with the contact number that I have shared. Otherwise, you can also use, this is my direct contact number if you want to talk to me. I am the trainer for this particular program, and just ping me anytime that you want to ask questions if you want to contact me. Okay. Saying that, thank you so much, and yeah, just enjoy your rest of your weekend. Thank you. Bye.